Meat off the bone here, I hope you are all well, as today we will be answering the motoring world's greatest question of all time. Is the Mazda MX5 Miata the answer to everything? Now, as you would expect, there is not much testing to be done to come to the realization that it is definitely not the answer to everything, let alone most things. Now, we have to explore this as the car is part of many communities, such as the tuna world, the ricer family, and the hairdressing industry. But all jokes set aside, this car seems to be on the fence in the automotive world of opinions, with people either hating it or loving it. So today, we figure out what all the fuss is about and see whether the Mazda MX5 Miata is the answer to A-Class racing. On initial thoughts, the MX5 would not be your first choice for A-Class racing. In fact, far from it. Especially after I tell you that your Forza case is wider than the MX5's tyres, and that the new Toyota Prius packs in more horsepower than it does. But we're not here to judge the MX5's haircut. We want to get behind the wheel and see if it can answer our question. To do so, I decided to take it to the best proving ground of all, being the public A-Class racing server. This would allow me to test the car in the most savage of racing conditions. And see how it would fare against the community's car choices. Being online public racing, there was never going to be the fairest of competition between drivers, but that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to put the Miata in the hardest position, battling against the most brutal of drivers, being of course public drivers, and this allowed me to find faults and positives of the Miata. Now, it's quite obvious, noting that the Miata is a small and light car, meaning that it's quite easy for other people to push you around. The MX5 is very low powered. My A-Class one was ranking just under 400 horsepower. This is compared to some of the other A-Class cars, such as that Ferrari 360 just in front of me. Matching the corner exit speed of other cars required the same technique as testing the temperature of food straight out of the oven with your finger. Quick in and out. Of the corner, that is. Oh, but the car is light, you say? Well, a lightweight car plus skinny tyres does not always equal good corner exit speed. In this case, an extreme lack of cornering grip and ability. The car was never built to race hard around the track. And you say, but you've got upgrades. Well, yes, I do. But to keep it from being a snail's pace down the straight, I had to sacrifice some tyre and suspension upgrades. Well, I can't put all the blame on the car. After all, I did do a record 12-second tune. No, not quarter mile time, 12 seconds of effort into the tune. Because of this, I decided to take it upon myself to find the best driving method to ensure the most performance out of the car. Now, the most probable answer would seem like the in and out method, but the problem that this caused was that the car would snap out, losing a ton of grip on exit, as you can see here. Now, the only solution I could come up with was waiting until the car was dead straight to put the power on, which initially seems like a very bad idea in a low powered car because, well, you'd lose out to everyone on the straight. But as you can see here, it wasn't a massive problem, in fact catching one of the fastest A-Class cars and passing it on the straight. just ignore that and that. Anyway, now that is the exact thing that shocked me. For such a small, low horsepower car, how was the MX5 able to keep up with the higher horsepower cars down the straight? It really comes down to power to weight ratio. Being such a light car with an upgraded engine, the MX5 did have that edge to keep up with even the Tirana just ahead of me. Unfortunately, around corners it wasn't as good as I expected it to be, suffering from some tremendous amounts of under and oversteer. Now, I definitely wasn't using traction control, stability control or ABS, so these factors could play a part, but the road car didn't have any of these features either. An odd thing regarding the tune setup is that I did not touch the gearing. I left it stock from the race transmission. Now this is really odd, as the gearing is usually the first thing I go to on such a low or high horsepowered car for any instance. And having such a long straight here at Yas Marina, it was the perfect place to demonstrate how well the stock gearing really did work. Despite the low placing that I did indeed get around this circuit, I can definitely put that towards being hit off so much and getting caught up in so many accidents. But from that I could only move forward onto another circuit in another race and see how the car fared. In this case I was shocked at how well the car tackled this Bernese Alps circuit, especially since I'd never driven this layout. We're not going to go into too much detail as to why I've never driven this layout. It's essentially because I really love the full course. Now, for a course that I'd never driven on, the MX5 allowed me to quickly adapt and in fact keep up with most of the cars of which had much more horsepower and seemed to be a much quicker car through the corners. Now, since this was my first lap around the track, I couldn't just go out and say the car's good or the car's bad, as it was me learning as well. Here, slightly kissing the wall. But the car did definitely have some areas where it suffered, and did have some areas where it really benefited. Despite getting some airtime over that bump, the car did really shine through here. You could almost straight line it, getting on the whole ripple strip back there and almost there again. Now this corner here wasn't too much of a struggle, with the Camaro just ahead also getting sideways. The car again didn't have any problems on the straight, getting a similar exit to the Camaro, but then not losing any more time. Now, braking and turning in wasn't the best, as it did have a slight bit of understeer. Now here I'm kind of holding myself back, waiting until the exit. Then by waiting, I got a much better exit, as the Camaro just floored it and got sideways out of the corner. Through these fast flowing corners of the Bernese Alps, the car was really able to shine, here passing and pulling away from the Camaro. But it wasn't the best it could be, as we had a Ferrari F50 right behind us, and literally right behind us. But coming down the straight, even though I had a Ferrari F50 behind me, the MX5 still held its gap, not suffering at all. Coming into this corner, I thought the Ferrari was closer than it was, so I decided to let off the brakes, but that just let the car through. Coming through this right-hander, it was a good opportunity to see how the car would compare against the Ferrari, quickly showing that it didn't fare well. But nonetheless went on to keep up with the Ferrari and slightly catch it towards the end, as the Mazda was a tad of a handful to control. But this was the track I enjoyed driving on the most, getting crazy rally style air, then coming through this quick sweeping chicane, absolutely having a blast while remaining quite strongly in the top 10. I believe at this point I was running around 5th or 6th position. Just when things couldn't get any better, I saw the front of a Mustang come piling into the rear quarter panel of the poor little MX5. Despite this, I decided to keep racing on to salvage whatever top 10 position I could. And just before the race was finished, coming around the final corner, I experienced again firsthand why these online sessions are equal to that of gladiator fights. As I moved on to the next race, I found it was in the wet, which was very exciting and different compared to all the other races in the MX5.
As usual, despite having a small field, everyone managed to take themselves out but the little Miata, so finally not getting caught up in any accidents. Now at the time I was pleased with the fact that I was able to get into first in this wet track, as it would let me explore how well the Miata would perform. All until I braked late on the grass and sent it off only a few corners into the race, giving away my lead. Once getting back on track, I wasn't able to keep up with or catch the Alpha at all. After all, the Alpha is the fastest car in A-Class, and it did suck that I wasn't able to race close with the Alpha, as it would have given us a good indication of how competitive the MX5 really was. So maintaining second position did become my first priority, especially as the MX5 hadn't had a podium finish yet, and this was looking like a good opportunity. Despite lacking a lot of grip around other circuits, the MX5 really surprised me in the wet. A positive of racing the MX5 in the wet was because of its small body, it was able to weave in and out of puddles with ease. This gave me the upper hand against the cars behind and allowed me to stay in a fighting chance for first position. Skipping through my lonely race, we're now watching the last part of the final lap. Quite clearly, if you look in my rearview mirror, there was no one to be seen, so the MX5 had done a good job at maintaining second in the wet. And there you go, getting onto the last straight to bring it home for all the ricers, all the tuners, all the hairdressers, only a few 100 meters from finishing on the podium in second, and it does it. The MX5 crosses the line on the podium step of second. My time in the MX5 was amazing. Never would I have ever seen myself racing this car online. It was a great experience, but was it the answer to our question? Well, my answer to that is no. It is definitely not the answer to A-Class racing. Look, despite having consistent top 10 finishes and a second place, we were never able to win or keep with some of the faster cars. I was surprised to find that the MX5 was so quick down the straight, never getting past once. But unfortunately, it just didn't have the cornering grip or braking ability as opposed to some of the other cars. Although it would be a great car for learning on online, as it is small, meaning that it's not hard to bring around the tight street circuits, and it does teach you the principles of controlling the car. But this would only be for the minority, as the game is nearly a year old, meaning that most players would be skilled enough to control any car they desire to race online. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you are brand new to the game or if you are more experienced than myself. As the car was a blast to drive, I now know what all the fuss is about and highly recommend driving it. Because of this, I decided to get back into A-Class racing and possibly make some future content on it. To conclude the video, I would like to thank the Mazda MX5 for giving me a great experience online, and you guys for watching until now. So if you did like the video, please support the channel by dropping a like and subscribing, as there will be much more content on Forza in the future. Also, if you have any ideas for future videos, please do not hesitate to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching again, and stay tuned.